Hi guys, today I want to talk to you about core aeration of your lawn and how valuable it is and how it's imperative on a healthy lawn, especially when you're trying to renovate. I've been talking a lot about thatching, but doing aeration on your lawn is just as important. Let's take a look to see how it is. Okay, so what is aeration of a lawn and why is it so important? Well, aeration is the fact that most of us look at a lawn and don't think about the fact that the roots that are underground need air and oxygen exchange just as much as the green shoots do on the surface. And when you're trying to grow grass in a very heavy soil, heavily compacted soil, maybe you park your car in the area or high traffic, there's no space in that soil for air. And then the grass is hindered in its growth. And so a lot of people will say they've seen these spikes that you can put on your shoes and walk around and almost like cleats, and they're like taking plugs, or they talk about how they have a toe behind aerator and it's all these little spikes that kind of go down into the soil, and they call it an aerator. And yes, it is technically slicing some holes, but if you think about it, if I just took my hand and slid it into the soil, yes, I'm going to make a little void, but I compacted the soil on the outside. And so it's actually compacting soil in order to add aeration. So I'm not a big fan of any aerator that's along those along those lines. And if they're just spikes going into the ground, I personally feel like they're doing more damage than good. Let's take a look at this machine behind me, because this is what we use, and it's called a core aerator, and it's actually gonna take plugs out of the soil and deposit them up on the surface. A lot of customers don't like it, again, because it kind of looks like goose poop all over your front lawn. But it's extremely beneficial because we're actually taking plugs out of the soil and not compacting it, and then we're depositing that soil up at the surface. So again, you've seen some of the videos on thatch and thatch buildup. So not only are we, by taking plugs out of the soil, are we allowing oxygen to get down there and the roots to breathe, but we're also removing some of that thatch and cutting down on the duration or how frequently you need to even thatch your lawn. And aeration is a lot faster process, much more cost effective, but extremely beneficial. So let's take a look at a little bit details about the machine and what to look for when you're determining whether someone's actually properly aerating your lawn. Okay, so I've already been over this spot here once or twice. This lawn is being renovated. And the first thing we do is, once the thatch is out of the way, we start taking these plugs out. The more compacted your soil is, the smaller the plugs. And so, but this is what it should look like. It should be pulling the soil plug right out, depositing it up on the surface. And then this is actually gonna decompose, and as soon as it rains, I mean, it just disintegrates. But all this is gonna decompose, so it's actually gonna help keep the organic matter on the soil. But it's not too conspicuous. It goes away pretty quickly, especially after you mowed. But this is what you should see all over your lawn if somebody properly aerated. If you have really good soil and it's light, the plugs could be bigger. If it's really heavy and compacted, maybe a little bit smaller. This lawn would have to be done 2 or 3 times. I find we go over most lawns at least twice. And we aerate on a regular basis. I aerate every year on most lawns that we take care of, and it definitely makes a big difference. But let's take a look at this machine. And so it's a very heavy machine. You have to have moisture in the ground, so we don't aerate during droughts. If you don't have moisture in the ground, it's not going to take good plugs out. But this machine has some serious weight to it, and when you look at it from in behind, it's just got all these little tines right here that you can see are just gonna take all those plugs. That's how the plugs are formed. And they're just gonna take it out, they pop out, and they come out here. And then as this machine goes, it's just constantly taking these little plugs. And that's what you should see by an aerator. They're, like I said, they're very heavy. Most of the good ones are self-propelled because it works. But it's a pretty easy machine to use. You just go up and down, back and forth like you're mowing your lawn, and then ideally go twice. But it's gonna do a good job at taking those plugs out. So customers typically ask, how often should you aerate? I'm a big advocate of aerating your lawn every year. Especially in this section here. There's always trucks coming up here, parking on the grass, and trailers or just materials being stored. And so we'll aerate a minimum of once a year. But I do not like aerating or thatching in the spring. Definite no-no. If you think about it, in the spring, well, let me back up. In the fall, all our weeds are going dormant. So very few weeds are germinating at this time of year. So opening up soil and letting those roots breathe a little bit is great in the fall, because all those voids, all those holes, over the course of even just a week or two, it's going to expand and they're going to close up. And in the spring, though, crabgrass is going to start germinating, and it's really important for a healthy lawn to get down your crabgrass preventatives. And so I just personally find that if you thatch or aerate in the spring, you better stay on your lawn, because usually you're just opening up a hole for weeds to grow, and then it's just a welcome wagon. So aerate and thatch in the fall, but we recommend aerating every season. The grass will never complain about getting too much aeration, and it's going to put, like I mentioned, it's going to cut down on how often you have to dethatch your lawn. So go ahead, hit it every fall, let it go right around now when the grass is actively growing, and plenty of moisture in the ground is the best time. Hope that helps. Take care.